my computer to check out. This is a Dell Dimension E520. I don't know, it's probably 10-15 years old. I think it was manufactured in 2005 or something like that. It doesn't power up. I got the power supply out of it already because it was too hard to see the fan on here move in here, and it's not working, of course. I got this laid out here because I found two problems with this. One, the power supply there's something wrong with, and two, right down in here there's two capacitors that blew out the top. So I don't know if this whole board's shot because of that or what caused that, but we're going to take a look at it, see if I can't replace those two and find out if that fixes this whole thing. Maybe they just got tired, you know, and needed to have a break. So I'm going to set this aside for now. We'll work on this a little bit later. But let's look into this first and see what's going on with it. Let me zoom in a little. So first thing I noticed was when I plugged this in, the fan doesn't move, and you won't be able to see that, but you might be able to hear it start up and then quit. I'll plug it in. Oh, sorry, I pulled out my let me backtrack here a second. To get a power supply like this to start, you need to short out two pins on here. And if you look, there's a green one, a green wire, and one of the black wires next to it. If you just take some kind of metal object and short that green one out to one of the black ones out next to it, that will turn on the power supply. It's like pushing the switch. So we got that in there. Now I'll plug this in. You might be able to hear the fan kick on, but then it turns right back off again. So I heard a little high-pitched noise, and that's about it. So the power supply isn't turning on. Alright, so let's tear into this thing a little bit, see what's going on. Cut the tag. And it's not under warranty anymore. Like it matters. Pretty dirty in there. These things usually do get pretty dirty. But good to vacuum them out once in a while. Oh yeah. A lot of dust going on in there. Oh, look at that. Just a quick view so far. See that capacitor right there? Blew the top out of it. So we know that's part of the problem why this won't work. We'll have have to look at some other components to see if any other ones got taken out. But let me get this all vacuumed up and cleaned the best I can the way it sits, and then we'll get this board out of this chassis here. Well, I don't know why, but my camera's on the fritz. It stops recording for no reason at all. Hopefully it doesn't crap out on me, because that's the only camera I have to make videos. So you missed the part where I desoldered this capacitor, the one that was blown out on the top. But if you know how to solder, you know how to get that stuff out. This is a 2200 microfarad at 10 volts. So I'll see if I can find one of these. I don't know if I have any of these this big. I might have to order it, and then we'll get back to this. 220 microfarad, 16 volts. It's way too big for the spot that it's going in. Ain't even the right type of capacitor. But to see if that's the only problem with this, I put it in there, soldered it in there, and we'll fire it up and see if that's the only thing that's holding this from working. If not, then of course we'll dig into it a little bit more. But being that we have to have things grounded, I gotta kind of put this back together again. If I can remember which way it came apart. Well, camera cut out on me again. So we got it together here, good enough. Make sure that capacitor isn't hitting this diode that's down there. And it doesn't look like it's hitting anything else. Alright, let's give it a whirl and see if we can see this fan turn on here. Hopefully before the camera decides to freak out again. So we can, I left the short in there. That's still in there, so hopefully we can see right down here, we see the fan moving or not. The fan is turning. That's a good sign. You can see the fan is, well, you can't see the fan, but you can hear it. I'll pull the cord out. And the fan stops. So we have power now, at least. So maybe we got lucky and that capacitor was the only thing that was holding it up. I think my camera's getting full and maybe that's why it keeps shutting off. I'm not sure. I'll have to check that out later. I didn't have my meter sitting out next to me, so I had to take a moment to get that. I'm going to check some of the voltages. The fan is still on. Power supply is still on. It's been on for, I don't know, 3 minutes or so. I want to see what kind of voltage we have coming out of some of these things. Make sure we have the right stuff. That's 11.9 about, and that's the power cord that plugs into the motherboard. So we have power coming out of there. Let's see, let me try this one here, I guess. Something I can get my meter into. Black, whites, and reds. Let's see what this reads. We got 11.9 volts on the white wire and 5.1 volts on the red wire. So it looks like we're getting our voltages out, so that's a good thing. So that most likely means we're getting them out of here too. So we'll assume that we are getting them out of here, out of this connector for now. So I'm going to let this run with this capacitor in it just to see how long it'll run until we get the 2 capacitors and the motherboard replaced. And then once we get those replaced, then we'll throw this together, see if the whole thing comes on, and if it does, then I'll make sure I find the appropriate capacitor that fits in there and put this thing together, and maybe we'll get lucky. Who knows? I just want to mention, I'm not even going to torture you guys with taking this apart on camera, because if you've ever took a computer apart before, you know everything has to come out. Everything has to be loosened up. This has to come out. A bunch of screws on the motherboard have to come out. Cards have to come out. And you always want to be touching the ground or have a strap on so you're grounded, so you don't short anything, shock anything, and damage it. So I'm going to take all this out. So, and the next thing you'll see is I should have the motherboard sitting on the table ready to pop out those capacitors. I have the board out. I just want to give you a quick look at what's going on here. I'll show you the reasons why it's good to totally disassemble your computer at least once a year to clean it, because all this dust in here and this fan, that I don't know how well you can see this, but that board is just covered with dust. The other side don't look too bad. You can see a couple dust bunnies there, but that is like really bad. And the worst of all is this here. Those are the reasons why at least once a year you want to disassemble your computer and totally clean the whole thing up. And make sure you're strapped in or touching the ground, the box, all the time. So that's that. So I'm going to vacuum up all this stuff now, and then get looking at those capacitors. Okay, I went ahead and I replaced those two capacitors. The two that were bubbled on top. They were right here. So I put two new ones in there. Now to give you a little forward advice on this, if you do something like this, these boards are really thick and it takes a lot of heat to get those legs hot enough to melt that solder to pull those things through. The only thing I can say is be real careful. You touch your soldering iron on the back here, you might burn right through one of these traces that are close to the pad there. So be extremely careful. They're real thick, dense boards and it takes a lot of heat. So let's throw this thing all back together again. I'm going to see if I have a little bit more icky to put on the chip here. Put this back together and see if this whole computer fires up. And if it does, that's good. If it don't, then these might not be the only thing that's bad. Nothing else looked bad around there. I didn't test anything with a meter or anything, but we'll go from here. If it's, you know, I'm not going to spend a lot of time and a lot of money on something like this because this is, you know, outdated already. So these things are reasonably cheap, but we'll see what we got with this. Got some compound, cleaned up all the old junk on there on both parts. So now we'll put some new on there and put it together. Alright, we got the board in. I'm just going to put a little bit of this on there. I don't know how much I should put on there, but I'm going to put enough to where I think it'll do its job. I don't know how much it flattens it out, but if a little bit oozes, that's fine. That's probably enough. Just enough to cover the bottom. That goes on there. And then when that presses down, it just flattens it down on there. So that should work, providing this whole thing works. Alright, I'm going to finish up by connecting everything back up and even temporarily putting that power supply in here, because remember I have to put that, if everything works right, I have to put the real capacitor in the power supply, the one that's supposed to be in there. Alright, it's all back together. You're seeing it when I'm seeing it, if it's going to work or not. I got it connected to a TV I have sitting right here. Let's plug this power cord in and see if something snaps or blows or whatever. Something came alive. Fans turned on. See an LED on down here. Nothing on the screen, of course, because I ain't hit the power yet. There's the screen there. It's a 42-inch TV, so I ain't gonna be able to get the whole thing on there. Alright, let me hit the let's hit the power button and see if it's a go. Hey, look at that. It's going to freak out here until there's something to focus on. Here's the fan running. Got the Dell logo up there. Asking me, I guess I got to connect the keyboard to it. I got to stick in a some device. Maybe this keyboard's not going to work right now. There it goes. We'll start it up normally. At least it's coming up. It's better than what I was doing before. Wasn't doing nothing. So what did we replace? We replaced one capacitor in the power supply and two capacitors on the motherboard. And it brought it back to life. So if anything else doesn't work, that's software wise, well that's a different story. I don't know what this condition this was when it died. I think it worked, talking with the person that owns it, but you can see it's up and running. So that's a good deal, I guess. 3 capacitors fixed the whole thing. We got lucky on this one. It's got XP on it. I mean, it's got Vista on it, so it ain't nothing real spectacular. So you can always change the software on it.